Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name is Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Hello, how are you? Don't ask me how I am because I'm not too sure at the moment how I am. My husband's in hospital. Unexpectedly, he'd gone for a checkup, and while he was having the checkup, it accidentally triggered his medical condition to be worse because he's got a defect in his heart, so he's in hospital at the moment. So I'm okay, but I'm not okay. Anyway, now I might have mentioned in a previous podcast, I don't know if I did mention, I'm now signed up for a 5-week course with a guy called Graeme Tobyn, Tobyn, who is the author of Culpeper's Medicine, A Practice of Western Holistic Medicine, new edition. I'll put a link to it. And I'm studying with, let me give the official name, the University of Wales, Trinity St David. And this is the Cultural Astronomy and Astrology department of there that's run by Nick Campion, and they do the MA there. Okay, so I am not doing an MA, trust me, I do not have enough brain cells. I'm just doing a 5-week course on medical astrology, and the guy that sort of got pretty famous for doing it, and his name was Nicholas Culpeper. So I thought, well, since I'm learning something, I might as well pass some of that on to you. Obviously, I'm not going to be telling you everything that's in the course because that would be wrong. But we are going to talk this week about Culpeper, who back in the day was quite a bloke for being a medical herbalist, even though he never qualified in things. He kept sort of dropping out of his education. Oh, that's something that I can identify with, and we'll see why. And so this is the 1600s in Britain, so in the UK, and he wrote a book which you might have heard of because it's been republished about a bazillion times. The official title is The English Physician Complete Herbal. So it's sometimes called Culpeper's Herbal, and it's also herbly, warbly, burbly. And Culpeper has got a really daft spelling. It's Culpeper. So we're just going to skip a little bit around his chart and not doing the whole of his life this week because I haven't got the time to stick it all in one podcast. I might come back to it. We'll see how we do. And it also depends how I get on with the course. So I've done 1 week. We've got 4 more weeks, and he was an astrologer, so that's the difference to him being a medical herbalist. And don't forget, he didn't get a qualification in medical herbalism because he dropped out of everywhere that he was studying to do it, because he was quite sort of rebellious. I'd definitely say that he was a rebellious chap. He didn't want to comply. Anyway, the point is that I'll talk you through his story and stuff. The thing that he was uppermost for him was the, inverted commas, common man, that the poor, etc., because if you were poor back then, you were going to live a shit life, excuse my French, because only rich people could have access to healthcare. And you'd have to employ a doctor at great expense, and you'd probably die, etc. And so the book that he wrote about herbalism was using herbs that you could get in your flipping back garden, up the road, in the graveyard or whatever, wherever there were plants. So he used very, very bog standard, easy to identify herbs that would help you with XYZ. So I'd say that was his biggest, excuse the word glory, it's not glory, that was his biggest contribution to the world. The UK? I I don't know how I don't know how famous he was in his day or whatever, but he was jolly liked, and his patients obviously respected him considerably because he wrote this all down so that they could buy the book and share the book and and in those days the politics was complete. Well, is it different? Was it different? Could seem completely different today. Now I'm going to have to translate a few things because anything to do with history or anything that's on a course that is sort of degree level. Trust me, I'm not doing a degree level course, but anybody that works on those types of things, they tends to get all rather sort of wordy. So I am going to translate because I can't be flipping asked to speak in long words, and I certainly don't like confusing people. I think confusion is the worst thing. on the first lecture, I literally had my dictionary out. I've got I think it's an Oxford dictionary. Where's my dictionary gone? My dictionary is hidden, and it's Oxford. I've got a very, very old copy of the Oxford Dictionary of Current English. I think it was published in something like the 1980s. What year was it? I love dictionaries. It was published in, I love doing Wordle. Do you like words? I love words. My copy was published in 1991. Okay. Anyway, I had my dictionary out because there were such long words in there. And they're probably words that you would use if you've got a degree. Trust me, I haven't. My education went as far as O levels. I attempted to do an A-level once and I attempted to do an A-level in philosophy, and I got as far as writing my name on the paper and just writing such an amount of blurb in there. My mind went completely blank, and I didn't realise that for the exam itself I couldn't write on a computer. I had to write a pen and paper. I don't know what made me think I'd be doing it any different. I had no idea at all. I did a home study. I got really good points from my tutor. They thought I'd be fine, but I turned up for the exam and it just didn't happen. So I got what's called an unclassified. So it's basically you just got your name on the paper, nothing else that you've written is correct. So if you're going to talk to me in long words, I'm mentally going to be translating it into something easy. Not that I don't love the English language, I do, but I don't use long words. Anyway, the dictionary is out in that first lesson. What's that word? So, Nicholas Culpeper. Now, I am going to read a few short excerpts from Graeme Tobyn's book, Culpeper's Medicine, A Practice of Western Holistic Medicine, because he has researched this bloke to the end of tomorrow. I mean, he has done so much work and I think he's written 2 books about him and all what he gets up to and stuff, and sort of written it in modern English. Yeah, modern English, except there's long words that Auntie Mary doesn't understand. So I'll read a couple of short excerpts, okay, because I don't want to get done for copyright from his book. And also, as per usual, I'm going to be using a little bit of Wikipedia. And I know people moan about Wikipedia because it's very transient. Any pages on Wikipedia can change in the blink of an eye, because all it takes is for an editor to go in there and remove a word. And occasionally I do that because I'm a bit crafty sometimes. There's a typo there, and I will sign in because I have got an account. So you spelt that wrong, or that little big English doesn't make any sense. So I'll make teeny little alterations. But it is Wikipedia I'm talking about now is an amazing thing. I hate the bloke who owns it. He needs to be whatevered. They don't like anything that isn't supposedly scientific, which actually is a bit sort of religious if you ask me. You know, science has become a religion, but anyway, we're not going there. But Wikipedia is an amount of people, lots of people together, creating information for anyone, and it is free. Or every now and again they'll ask you for some money. You don't need to give them money, trust me, the man who owns it is a flopping multi-millionaire, and it relies upon people like you and me that can edit it and add information if it's a subject that you're particularly interested in. Anyway, Nicholas Culpeper. So I'll just read the first couple of sentences on the Wikipedia page because that's easier than me quoting out the book. Nicholas Culpeper, 18th of October 1616 to 10th of January 1654, was an English botanist, herbalist, physician, and astrologer. And I read that and I felt like going, hurrah! They've actually added in there that he was an astrologer. There's no two ways about it. Nicholas Culpeper did astrology. His book, The English Physician, 1652, later The Complete Herbal in 1653, is the source of pharmaceutical and herbal law of the time and astrological judgment of diseases for the decumbrature of the sick, 1655, was one of the most detailed works on medical astrology in early modern Europe. Culpeper catalogued hundreds of outdoor medicinal herbs. He scolded contemporaries for some of the methods they used in herbal medicine. Quote, "This not being pleasing and lest profitable to me, I consulted with my two brothers, Dr. Reason and Dr. Experience, and took a voyage to visit my mother Nature, by whose advice, together with the help of Dr. Diligence, I at last obtained my desire, and being warned by Mr. Honesty, a stranger in our days, to publish it to the world, I have done it." Okay, it's a little quote from him, okay. Culpeper came from a line of notabilities, including the courtier Thomas Culpeper, who was reputed to be a lover of Catherine Howard, also a distant relative, the fifth wife of Henry VIII. Bum-ba-dum-ba-dum. Okay, so there he is. He's a medical herbalist. He's a bloke. He's around in the 1600s. And there was a lot of things going on. You were either a royalist or can't remember what the other one was called. You were either a royalist or a parliamentarian. So you either supported the king or you supported Parliament. There wasn't much in between. And you sort of think, well, actually, that's how things are today now. It's got to the stage, I'm just deviating for a second, it's got to the stage in the UK that even though there are 2 or 3 different, or probably 4 different political parties, it's now got to, in the UK, it's Labour or Conservatives, and I believe in America it's the Republicans or the Democrats. So in certain countries it's a sort of either or thing, when actually there's lots of other options too. My mother forever voted Liberal. Don't know why, but she did. I think she liked the fellow that ran the party at the time. And my dad was a Conservative, and so was his parents. Goodness knows why. But anyway, if you want to know what I vote Labour. But don't let that turn you off. But Culpeper was very much for the man. So let's have a little look at his natal chart. Now, I'm using the data that's on Astrodatabank. I'm just going to double check that it's exactly the same as the chart that Graeme has got in his book, because we don't want to be using a chart that is different. We've got 18th of October, we've got 12, they've done 12 p.m. so that the chart he's showing in here is rectified. He's saying it's what time is he saying? 12 o'clock. So somebody's done 12 p.m. Okay, is that right? Oh no, somebody else is recomputing it in here to 11:27 a.m. I'm going to use Astrodatabank. So I might have to come back to you and say, oh, got the charts got wrong. Anyway, basically, Capricorn ascendant, pragmatic, down to earth, wanting to get on in life. Queenie, if you remember, has had a Capricorn ascendant. Sun in Scorpio, do not cross me, I will stab you. Moon in Gemini, let's chat about it. So he's got chart shape wise, he's got a massive opposition between, it is massive, Sun opposition Saturn, Sun opposition Pluto, and Saturn and Pluto are conjunct. His moon doesn't make many aspects that are significant. We've got a sextile to Mars and an opposition to Jupiter. And back then they wouldn't have used Neptune, Pluto or Uranus. because they hadn't discovered them, because they hadn't invented telescopes back then. But I'm going to use them because you'll see why in a minute. Now, his Sun Scorpio in the 10th house, which is a Capricorn thing, but that Capricorn ascendant. He was reasonably ambitious in what it was he did, but he didn't really want to follow what other people had done. He was quite a kickback to things. He also, just for the record, was, I can't remember if he was an alcoholic. He definitely smoked, and he drank. And maybe that's got something to do with what happened to him earlier on, which we'll come on to in a minute. So we've got Uranus in Cancer in the 7th. You'll hear about that in a minute. You've got Mars in Leo in the 8th, which squares his Mercury, yeah, so he could get a bit grumpy when he was writing. Neptune's in Libra, so there'll be some people listening. Is that right? There'll be some people listening with Neptune. There'll be Pluto and Libra people listening. Yeah, there could be Neptune and Libra people listening. So the planets have all shifted back to, 1616, the word do, sorry, I'm thinking loud there. He's got Jupiter in Sagittarius in its 12th. Now, Jupiter's very happy in the sign of Sagittarius, so it's going to sort of behave itself. However, it's directly opposite his moon in the 6th. So moon in the 6th people do worry. If you want to like shortcut someone's chart to do they worry, don't they worry, if you've got the moon in the 6th house, trust me with this, they're going to worry for a living and won't even realise that they're doing it. So anybody with moon, and I don't care what the moon sign is, but moon in the 6th, worry, 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 worry. And the 6th house, I always think of it as the house of worry. What is it I'm going to worry about? So Mercury is the planet, like, what do we talk about? And then the location in your chart, because I've done a whole podcast on that, where your Mercury is located, in which house, what is it? What's the subject matter you talk about? And where are you happiest talking about? So, depending on the house and stuff. But if you've got moon in the 6th, you're going to worry, worry, worry. Doesn't matter. It could be in Sagittarius, which is a very optimistic moon sign to have, stick it in the 6th. Worry, worry, worry. Now, what he would worry about, maybe you or I wouldn't worry about. He was quite a sort of Bible-bashing, anti-royalist, didn't like the stuff that other people were getting up to. Goodness knows if he had any friends, I presume he did. But as you would have noticed in that first quote that I read to you, which is on the Wikipedia page, Mr. Honesty, Mr. Experience and stuff, he's sort of swinging a backhander at other people that might have written things then. So actually, I've read quite a few. I've read a number of older astrology books, one of which I quoted in my Equal House book. How people wrote books back then might be almost similar to how people write on social media now when they're having a bad day. And so they'll give you their inverted commas opinion. Now, back then, the only way to get your opinion out there would be to either stand on the street and preach your opinion, or make leaflets and hand them out, or write a book. Don't forget, not everybody could afford to buy a book, because books were expensive, but you could put your opinion in a book and hopefully rattle the person that you're slagging off. Okay, so that's his chart. I think I've done all the planets there. Venus and Mercury in Scorpio as well. So his chart isn't so like if you're sort of summarising someone's chart up, is he a true Scorpio? Yes, he is, but he's got such a Capricorn flavour because the sun is in the 10th. And that moon in Gemini ain't going to help him at all, because the moon in Gemini cannot concentrate. Hello, the person that's speaking to you at the moment has got moon in Gemini. I find it difficult to concentrate on one thing day in, day out. The quickest way to kill somebody with moon in Gemini is make them do the same thing in the same way every day for the rest of their lives. That would be my biggest nightmare. Like, you know, working in a factory on a production line and having to quickly slip a product into a plastic bag, into the next plastic bag and the next plastic bag, and just do that for the rest of my life. Is like, that'd be my biggest nightmare. But that's a little flavour of what moon in Gemini, it's not sun sign, moon in Gemini people need to have a variety of things to do, and he's got that in the 6th, and it's the house of health, so he was very good at preaching, talking about health, but he was absolutely pants at looking after his own health. So let's go on to a little bit of info. So Graeme tells us that so he was born blah 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 19 days I think it was before he was born, his dad, who was a pious minister, popped it suddenly at the age of 36. His dad was called, have we got the name there? It doesn't say what his dad was called. Oh, he was also called Nicholas Culpeper. Oh, that makes life so difficult, doesn't it? Don't call your kids the same name you've got yourself. His mother, Mary Attersol, stricken with grief, was required to vacate the vicarage at Ockley and returned with her baby son to her father, the Reverend William Attersol, rector of the parish of St Margaret's at Isfield in Sussex. Now, back in the day, if you were part of a religious family, you were provided for. The likelihood of you starving to death is less than zero. It was quite a well-paid job back then. I mean, you had to send a hat around or a begging bowl around at every mass so that you'd be able to, you know, trust me, the churches have been short of a bob, and they still aren't. Don't get me started. And if you think of people like Jane Austen, her dad was a vicar. He and his missus are buried in Bath. Jane Austen lived here for a while and they moved here, and then he popped it. But there's St Stephen's, I think it is. The remains of his father are buried. Her father, Jane Austen, are buried there. And she wasn't short of a bob or two, because if you got into religion in any way, you were pretty much assured a decent enough existence. Okay, or obviously dependent on the parish that you're working in, but there'd be money coming from the coffers of the religion that you're a member of. So he was born into a reasonably well-to-do family. I think there were a couple of baronets knocking about, and some of his family were knighted and da. Anyway, he attended a free school in Sussex and went up to Cambridge. I've always written that, up to Cambridge in 1632, age 16. Now that's quite young to go to university, so I thought, well, let's have a look at the chart of Nicholas Culpeper, who's been born into this pious family, and his mother's recently widowed, so I expect the majority of his look at that Capricorn ascendant, the majority of his early childhood would have been, because his mum would have been grieving, and then he has to go and live with his granddad. God knows what his granddad was like. Do you know, I don't think things change. I've got a client this exact thing's happened to. But anyway, goes to university. So let's have a look at some transits. Now, I think universities kick off either September or October. So as the date for the transits, I've done the 1st of September. I'm struggling to remember, but I think in the UK it's either September or October. So we're not going to fight about this, but we're not even going to look at the sun or the moon or Mars or whatever. Forget that, because I haven't got the exact date. What I'm looking at is the outer planets, because when we're talking about transits, and I just done a webinar on it, so please go over to my YouTube channel and watch the webinar on transits, because it's lush. It's such lovely questions people asking, such lovely people came along to it. Neptune is now conjunct, transiting Neptune in the year of 1632, when he'd be 16 years old, if I'd done the maths right. 1632, yes, I don't know. Ignore the month, look at the outer planetary transits. Would you want to go to university with Neptune transiting your sun sign? What are the chances of you being able to concentrate on getting your head down and chucking out loads of assignments while you're 16, you're away from home, you're in a foreign place that you didn't grow up in, You're in Cambridge, for goodness sakes. It's full of bicycles. Is it Oxford's full of bicycles, big pun. And he's born in Ockley, wherever the heck that is. And now he's at Cambridge. And Neptune's on his sun sign, and Saturn is on his Mercury. So I don't think he wrote a biography. I wonder if he kept a diary. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Anyway, transiting Neptune's conjunct the sun sign. So I'll read you what happens next. So there he is at uni. His mother and grandfather, who he'd been living with, had hoped that Nicholas would go on to study divinity and enter the church, as both he and the boy's own father had done. Nicholas clearly had other ideas. We learn that Mr. Attersole had formerly used his best arguments, though to no purpose, to persuade him to embrace the ministerial function, and that he perceived, contrary to his intention, that Mr. Culpeper bent his inclinations from the time that he was about 10 years of age to astrology and occult philosophy. So those were the things that interested him. And then you have to ask the question, and Graeme puts this in the book, like, how did he even know about astrology? Well, the house was packed with books. It was his grandfather's house, and astrology wasn't illegal, okay? So not that astrology and religion were incompatible, for in that age, many God-fearing persons believed that God had created the 7 planets and the stars, set them in motion and ordered them so that they might reflect his will to those down below who had the knowledge to read the signs. After all, where would he have read of astrology at that tender age of 10, if not in books from his own grandfather's library? Yet Puritan ministers such as Attersole, his grandpa, whilst they may have possessed texts on such matters, would likely have followed Calvinist teaching in condemning it openly with great zeal. So that's a bit funny. You've got a book in your house that, I don't know, are you keeping it there to impress the neighbours? Anyway, typical Scorpio goes and delves into astrology. Now, I need to ask you, are you a Scorpio? I have now lost track of the amount of podcast listeners that are Scorpio and have got into it. It's pretty much a thing that a Scorpio loves to do, and I've had emails from podcast listeners, and the email comes in just when Scorpio's ascending, or the moon's in Scorpio, or the sun's in Scorpio. It's the busiest time of year for me, sun in Scorpio. So he's learning astrology, right? But he goes to uni. Now, according to Graeme, Nicholas had been involved in herbs from an early age. He was interested in medicinal herbs. So he goes to university. We, us, you, me, no one knows what it was that he went there to study, or if he went there to study medicine, or if he simply intended to attend the lectures on medical subjects while still engaged with Greek and Latin. It's not implausible that he intended to obtain a medical degree subsequently, but he was young, no doubt impulsive, and was enjoying himself at Cambridge. As it turned out, he never took a degree of any sort. So he never got his certificate, and it wasn't hanging on the wall. And the reason being, and I won't read you the whole blurb because that's not fair, you've got to have to get the book to read about it. But he met a girlie, and the girlie was hit by lightning, and she died. So there he is, and I think that's probably the sun, Scorpio, moon, Gemini. He's chatted up this girl. They're dating, so he's having a whale of a time now that he's met a girlie. I don't know, how did he meet her? Do we know anything about her? She was a beautiful lady, and her father was reported to be one of the noblest and wealthiest in Sussex. Well, there we go. So that's sun in the 10th for you. He was going to marry above his station. So we've got the date. We haven't got the exact date, but she was hit by lightning and died on the spot. Is that right? Died on the spot. I think, yes, died on the spot. And so he goes to university in, hold on, I lost track of myself now. So that's his dies. Let me just go back to uni. The girlie dies, big button. Right, so he goes to uni in the year 1632. So he's a couple of years dating the girlie, don't know how long he was dating her for, and in the summer of 1634 she gets hit by lightning. Now in the UK we sort of classify summer as being August, so I've done the 1st of August, but again ignore the sun. And because we've got a Saturn ruled chart, because it's Capricorn ascendant, we need to be paying attention to that. So what happens to him? Well, Jupiter's transiting through his 7th house of close relationships and marriage. But look at him natally, Uranus retrograde in Cancer. There's going to be this sort of knee-jerk, I don't want to commit type of idea. And Jupiter's coming past. But look now what's happened. Neptune is exactly conjunct to his MC. Okay, so you're not going to be able to concentrate on your career with Neptune making a transit. Trust me. Other major planets, Saturn is just working its way through his 12th house. It's not exactly conjunct to his Jupiter, but when it does, that'll be dark night of the soul. But Neptune's now, because his MC, using equal house, his MC is how many degrees? 12 degrees Scorpio. Transiting Neptune's now 9 degrees, so it's within a conjunction. And the other outer planet is Jupiter, and it's making its way through his 7th now. So he's sort of probably quite happy. Oh, she's a rich girlie. That'll impress my parents. I'll get a couple of bob off my father-in-law, la, la, la. I'm sure these things would have gone through his head, no matter how beautiful she might have been. Just can sort of tell by his chart. Anyway, she dies, and then that's it. He's eternally grieving. It's impossible to express the sorrow of so true a lover as Mr. Culpeper was, the strangeness of this misfortune being enough to shake the strongest resolutions of the most established person of the world. Now that's a contemporary writer, so somebody's writing about him. Why? I don't know where they're writing, but I'd have to check the notes at the back of the book. So unfortunately the girlie dies, and that's it. That's smashed now his hope of doing anything. And anyway, even if he, I don't know what his levels of love were for this lady. I don't even know if we've got her chart. Nobody seems to be mentioning what her date of birth was, poor girlie. Must be somewhere in the family line. Maybe I'll check that out at some point. It terribly aggravates me that in historical records there's loads of dates and information for the blokes and there's 0 for the girls. It's like you're lucky if you get your mother's date of blinking birth. Anyway, unfortunately, girlie's hit by lightning. Now let's go to we've got a few more events and then we'll tie up. Now Graeme says by the autumn of 1632, because she died in the summer, Nicholas, no doubt still numb with the awful shock of having lost his beloved in such a cruel way, was no longer of a mind to return to his studies at Cambridge, nor to pursue any entry into the church. And so Mr. Attersall, this is Grandad, with the advice of friends, this is quoting some book, consulted how to dispose of Mr. Culpeper, which was to send him to London, where they placed him with Mr. White, an apothecary near Temple Bar, to whom they gave him £50. He not having been with him above a year and a half, and Mr. White failed, his necessities compelling him to go to Ireland with the loss of Mr. Culpeper's money. So he went off with a dosh. So after the departure of his master, Culpeper was helped to become apprentice to another apothecary, Francis Drake, who lived in Threadneedle Street, so in London now, with his existing apprentice Samuel Leadbeater. There's a bit more about Drake died in February 1639, and a year later Leadbeater, having completed his apprentice and freed to practice as an apothecary, took over the running of his former master's shop. He and Culpeper had obviously struck up a friendship during their training, because Culpeper agreed to set up in business with him that time, though he'd turned over to Mr. Higgins, a warden of the society for the duration of the apprenticeship. So Culpeper and Leadbeater went into practice together. And now he wouldn't have been able to do that. And don't forget, he's not even qualified in apothecary. He ain't qualified at universities. He's managing to sidestep every flipping qualification there is. Maybe he would have been better learning as an apprenticeship rather than having to go for exams, like when you're with someone and you watch them do it forever. So he takes over the Apothecary the year after. So him and Leadbeater take over the Apothecary the year after, what's his chops, dies, Francis Drake. So I thought, that would be, because he dies in February 39. So let's have a look at the transits for 1630. Now he's got himself a bit of a job, like a proper job type of thing. And he can sort of hang on the tails of the Leadbeater chap who's fully qualified and sort of say he's assisting him or whatever. And we can see that's turned up in the chart now. Jupiter's returning. Jupiter's such a lucky, flipping, lovely planet, but it's returning to his 12th house. So the money that he's getting doing the job, which I presume he's getting paid something. Uranus is now conjunct his sun sign, and Neptune's now conjunct his Mercury. So this poor lad, I'm talking about Nicholas Culpeper, he's actually not being helped by the outer planets. I mean, luckily he was born with Pluto in opposition to his sun sign, so Pluto's never going to get back to his sun sign unless he lives like quite an old age. My mum didn't have a Pluto opposition, I think she was in her 90s because it's got such an erratic flipping orbit. Uranus will return. We'll all get our Uranus return when we get to 84. So when he's born, his Uranus is in Cancer. It's gone chunk, and now when there's this opportunity, this lovely opportunity to get stuck in and become an apothecary, Uranus is conjunct his sun sign, so he's not going to want to settle down to do that either in a formal sense, and that probably contributed towards his rebelliousness. And you've got Neptune on Mercury transiting, you've got Jupiter returning, so that's pretty good. I don't know what exact month it was, I've just taken exactly a year later, but we've only been able to keep an eye on the outer planets because we don't know exact months. Now this is the background to Uranus transit, right? This is the background to him. He never got his apothecary license, okay? So he's with someone who has done all the studying. It'd be interesting to look at this Samuel Leadbeater's chart. He's done all his studying, he's ticked all his boxes, he's got all his qualifications, and if you're an apothecary, like, you can prescribe, okay? Similar things today. And then there's physicians, so the physicians are the doctors, and the apothecaries are the ones that supply the drugs to the doctors. And Samuel Hahnemann, because I'm a homeopath, he was born a bit later in the 1700s, he cheesed people off because he made his own remedies, which you weren't allowed to do unless you were licensed and you paid your subs and all the rest of it. And he cheesed off a load of people then, and they tried to bring him down, but they didn't manage it. He got terribly famous. And it was a similar thing with Culpeper, who's a predecessor to him. He hasn't ticked any boxes, he hasn't done anything he's supposed to do, he hasn't got any flipping qualifications. And poor old Leadbeater gets warned twice that if he carries on, so this is the Society of Apothecaries, he's got a colleague that is unlicensed, so he's really getting it in the neck, and eventually he gets imprisoned. So he's threatened, his co-worker is threatened a couple of times, and obviously Culpeper doesn't do what he's supposed to do. So on the 17th of December 1632, Culpeper was imprisoned and tried for witchcraft. So it may well be that the opposition to his practice by high-ranking apothecaries, or perhaps by members of the College of Physicians, became so fierce that this was engineered by false accusations. The offence of witchcraft carried the death sentence, but Culpeper was found not guilty and acquitted of the charge. Now, there's been various other people in the UK that have been tried for witchcraft. I mean, the Salem witch trials, that wasn't in the UK. Is that in the UK? Salem witch trials? Was that in America? My history's getting me down now. But in the UK there were witches, and they did get tried, and then they get dunked and killed and all the rest of it. But there's a number of famous astrologers that have been tried for witchcraft, one of which was Alan Leo. And the first time he went to court and was tried, he was let off. But the second time he went to court, because he didn't behave himself, he carried on doing what he was doing, he was fined, I think. He wasn't imprisoned, and then he died a little while later. Anyway, so we're only going today as far as Culpeper being imprisoned, so we're going to have a look at the transits for him then. Uranus is now safely, is that the right word, transiting through his 11th house of friendships. So Uranus is pretty much disrupting his 11th house. When it was conjunct his sun sign, it's stirring up the business that he's involved in, because 10th house is career and work and all the rest of it. Now it's transiting through his 11th house, and now we've got a date, hurrah, and the sun is in Sagittarius. We've got Jupiter conjunct his north node, we've got transiting Venus conjunct his natal Chiron, we've got the moon in Libra, which is up in his 10th. We've got the transiting north node is not far off his Neptune. We've got Neptune is now 0 degrees into Sagittarius. So Neptune, which was transiting past his sun sign and Mercury while he's at university getting off with the girls. And Mercury's retrograde, I think. Yeah, Mercury's retrograde in Sagittarius. So we've got a pretty dramatic set of transits. So I don't know how long he spent in prison. I don't know what the laws were back then. You know, you're accused. I don't know if they had bail then, no idea. But that's the date that he was tried. But he was let off, acquitted of the charge. So that's lucky. So the sun illuminating his natal Jupiter pretty much helped. Mercury retrograde is opposition to his moon. But I think what's more significant is that Neptune has changed a sign, because all that time that it's going through past his sun sign, his Venus, his Mercury and stuff, he's sort of away with the fairies, which is what can happen. I've had it transiting, it's still transiting, God help me, sun sign Mercury and stuff, and to be grounded, it's much more difficult to be grounded when Neptune makes a transit. But now it's 0 degrees, like I said. Neptune, 0 degrees and 23 minutes into the sign of Sagittarius. So in a sense, that's going to help him. It's out of his sign now. So this outer planet's been causing him so much, inverted commas, grief has helped. Yeah. I thought it was funny that he was acquitted on a Mercury retrograde. It's like, I'd pray for that to happen. You're more likely to have confusion during a Mercury retrograde, but hey. And the sun is exactly conjunct his natal Jupiter. Sun is 25, natal Jupiter is 26. Yeah, that's pretty much the thing. Mars, transiting Mars, is now conjunct his natal Saturn. So I'll just read you the next bit. If Culpeper underwent a change of heart, it confirmed his great desire to help the poor and needy of England in a direct and practical way, that compassionate concern for which he was later held in great regard, which led him straight into illegal practice, not only as an apothecary, but also as a physician. So he really was rebelling against the rules and regulations and laws at the time. And things are a little different now. You can be qualified in so many different things at the moment. Like, I'm qualified as a homeopath, I'm qualified as a hypnotherapist, I'm also a practicing astrologer, I have got insurance, I do abide by codes, etc. It isn't illegal for me to practice, but equally it isn't legal in a sense, because I'm not anybody medical. So I, in some sense, I sort of sympathise with his attitude, and you could say that he was self-taught, that what he learned he taught himself, or he made himself learn the bits that he wanted to learn. And that rebellious side, definitely that would have been Uranus shaking things up for sure. So today we've been discussing Culpeper's medicine, a practice of Western holistic medicine by Graeme Tobyn. We're talking about Nicholas Culpeper, the ancient astrologer / medical herbalist. I absolutely, totally respect herbs. I'll just leave you with an interesting fact. So I'm a homeopath, and I got into homeopathy because my son was ill with croup, and I bought an over-the-counter homeopathic medicine to help croup, and it worked. It's like I was blown away by it. But I've never really had much experience of herbs, even though lots of homeopathic remedies are made out of herbs, but they're also made out of certain animal products like milks and things, and they're also made out of minerals like sulfur and salt and stuff like that. But herbalism obviously is just plants, and I've never had a wonderful experience of them until last year when our dog was, so we've got a Saluki Whippet dog, she was critically ill with a liver tumour, and we were counting the days for her departure, considering where we'd have her put down, where we would, in what method we would do this. I'll say it too loud because she's in the other room. Anyway, you can imagine, right? And the people that we buy our dog food from, because we feed Isabella BARF diet, which is just meat, free range meat, recommended a herb called milk thistle, which is good for the liver. Now obviously we went to the vet as well, we did everything, legitimately. We're not going to make our dog suffer, and I like to do both. I like to do conventional medicine, and I like to do supporting on the side with whatever, prayers even. So long story short, the dog food company recommended milk thistle. Checked that with the vet. Yeah. Got the one the vet recommended. It didn't do the thing. Found a supplier of dog herbs. I didn't know if such a thing existed. And I think it was the dog food company that recommended this dog herb company. Anyway, we got this milk thistle stuff for her. Now, she was so unwell, we couldn't get her to cross the road. Like, roads in the UK aren't that much wider than the length of a car. Couldn't get her to even cross the road to go for a walk. She was that weak and unwell. And overnight, so she had the remedies, not the same day, but the following day we had a different dog. And then I went back to the herbal company, and because she's got a bit of arthritis. Well, she's probably about 12. We've had her 9 years, so we've got milk thistle, has absolutely ticked the box. We've got a doggy that's now playing in the garden, wanting to go for walks and stuff, but stopping every now and again because the leg hurts. So we get this other stuff, glucosamine, you might have heard of that, for the dodgy leg. And oh my God, she's off chasing bunny rabbits. Okay, so she's an elderly Saluki Whippet hound. She's a hound. She's medium sized. She's about the size of a greyhound. And we're totally different dog. And she's probably about 12. We've had her 9 years. When we adopted her, she was probably about 2 or 3. And I couldn't believe it. It was the same thing when I gave my son aconite. It's like, oh, the croup stopped. He's breathing. He's calmed down. It's like, oh, what happened there? And it was exactly the same thing. So I never tell people about stuff that I haven't experienced myself. Trust me, certain herbs, not all of them, because you need to choose the right herb, go to the right herbalist, obviously, can actually make a difference to health in a superly big way, which is probably one of the reasons that I signed up for this course, because I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. Not that they're even teaching us to be a medical herbalist, don't get me wrong, we're just learning about Culpeper himself. So I've yacked, so I hope you have a fab week. Now there's one more thing I need to tell you. Now, I mentioned I'm on Instagram. I don't have any other social media other than that. And my Instagram name is Mary English, all one word, .co.uk, which is my website address, yeah, because somebody else had nicked my name. But anyway, so if you're on Instagram, find me, follow me, but please send me a message so I know that you're a podcast listener, because I'm getting a bit sort of flooded with lunatics. I don't want followers that are lunatics. I want nice people like yourself. So if you're on Instagram, do follow me, because next week, Tuesday the 27th, so I don't know when you're listening to this, but anyway, Tuesday the 27th of February at 6 p.m. UK time, I'm going to be doing a little Instagram live thing with a lady. I'll give you her address in a minute, Jasmine Abrozovic,
Astrology, so JASMINABROZOVIC Astrology, all one word. So she's on Instagram. So she's an astrologer, and we're going to be talking about chart shape. So that's 6 p.m. UK time, and she's ET time in America. That's 1 p.m. ET time. So ET in America is, I'm sure ET is Eastern time, so that's 1 p.m. Anyway, you'll have to convert it. UK 6 p.m. time, ET time 1 p.m. So if you're on there and you want to listen or watch into the live that's going to be happening, that's Tuesday the 27th. Now that's obviously all dependent on what is or isn't happening with my husband at the moment. And if you're given to prayers or lighting candles and stuff, it'd be lovely if you could do that. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye now. And sorry, one last thing. On the podcast next week, we have a guest, and her name is Terry Noodleman, and she's an astrologer that was born in Turkey and lives in Scotland. So we're going to be chatting to her next weekend, and there'll be a YouTube video going up with her interview. And do check in next week for that. So I'll continue the blurb about Culpeper, not next week, but the week after. It depends on how I feel. I might change my mind about it. But next weekend, we've got Terry Noodleman. So I hope you have a fab week. Bye-bye now.